FloatPlane Club. FloatPlane Club. Oh yes, yes, yet another YouTube competitor. Eli is a member of the FloatPlane Club. I have access to some Linus Media Group forum posts not publicly visible. The most recent one was regarding other YouTubers joining the platform. Basically, the post was asking to suggest content creators they should invite. I suggested you, and I suggest contact Linus if you're interested. I think they're getting close to the stage where they're ready to expand to other creators. I would post a screenshot of the post, but I don't want to risk my membership there. I tweeted at Linus, and if he responds that it's fine, I'll add the screenshot. So, what do I think of FloatPlane Club? Oh, God bless Linus. Spaghetti Monster, bless Linus. Spaghetti Monster, bless Linus. If he wants to create a YouTube alternative, more power to him. So, Linus, if you don't know Linus of Linus Tech Tips, to be clear, I have the greatest respect in the world for him from a business standpoint. From a business standpoint, his content, his content is half a freaking ad, but from a business standpoint, he's doing well. He's basically like the Henry Ford of YouTube tech content. Just mass produces that stuff. I think he has 15 employees now, like multiple video editors. He has script writers. He has researchers. I mean, he's living the dream. He's Spaghetti Monster Plus. He's living the YouTube content creator dream. And so with him, he's been doing YouTube for however long. I guess he started with NCIX, I think is where he started. Then he created his own channel. That's exploded. He just created like a petabyte video server or something ridiculous. But one of the things is a couple of years ago, there was an alternative to YouTube that came out called Vessel, Vessel. And so it was going to be the YouTube alternative, but it was going to be for premium, like the premium YouTube content creators. So, I don't think I got invited. Maybe I did. I forget. But Linus and the big people. The idea there was members would pay $3 a month. I think it was $3 a month to become members of Vessel, and then Vessel would then pay content creators based on how much of their content was viewed. So if I paid $3, and let's say I watched 10 of Linus's shows and 20 of Good Mythical Morning shows, then Linus would get 10% of the cut, and Good Mythical, or could get 30% of the cut, and Good Mythical Morning would get like 60% of the cut, basically that kind of thing. And so Vessel was going along. I was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with Vessel, because that was the thing. There was a lot of content creators. Vessel pulled in a lot of big name content creators because they paid a fee up front, as far as I understand. So basically, it wasn't like this VidMe crap that VidMe is doing, where they're just trying to shame YouTube content creators into trying VidMe. Vessel came out and was basically like, "How much is it gonna cost?" I don't know how much those payments were. As I understand, they were significant. They were real money. They were definitely more than paying for cups of coffee. And so that's apparently how they got a lot of the premium content creators to go over there, and Linus was one of the content creators to go over there. Well, the thing you have to be thinking about with all these startups, and that's one of the risks with companies like VidMe or alternatives to YouTube, or really even YouTube itself, is you don't really know what the hell's going to happen with the company. And so Vessel was going along. I still don't have much opinion about Vessel. Vessel was kind of like YouTube Red. People talked about it a lot in the beginning, and then it kind of trailed off. So I didn't really know what was going to happen with it. Had in the back of my head. But then apparently, holy shit, how the real world happens. Vessel I think they got bought by Verizon. Was it Verizon who bought them? Somebody bought them. And literally, they basically terminated all their contracts overnight. Which again, I don't understand how all these acquisitions happen. This is the weird world of modern business. Of you build a business, you have something, you get acquired by another company, and then the other company essentially kills everything that you just created. Anyways, so apparently that like died quick. Like I'm not sure, it was like 30 days or 2 weeks. It was a shocking amount of time that Vessel killed all of their contracts and basically spun people off. And so Linus, apparently, from what I understood, was making a reasonable amount of money off of Vessel. And so when Vessel got chopped off, they were looking at new ways of doing things and basically came up with the idea of, hey, why don't we create our own vessel, right? And that's where I guess they call it FloatPlane. The idea is if it doesn't fly, at least it'll float, which is a good business concept. That's the kind of business person you want to be around. I hope it'll fly. I hope it'll fly. Even if it doesn't fly, we know at least it'll float. So their idea is basically recreate a vessel. So they supposedly will have their forum. Then you'll get access to their videos like a week early or something like that. You should be able to download their videos. More or less, basically, you're getting an alternative to YouTube. It costs $3 a month for that, and so that's their big push. They're just trying to hire programmers, and it sounds, I don't know. Sounds interesting. Sounds interesting. Would I be interested in FloatPlane? Oh, it's a lot like VidMe. Like, I don't know, give it a couple of years, see where it goes. The problem that I see, and maybe I'm just a special little flower here in the YouTube world. A special sad little flower in the YouTube world, is the problem that I see with all these alternatives to YouTube popping up is, unfortunately, you know how they talk about content being king and content creators being like rulers of this new world? Can I be honest with you for a second? Let's just for a second be honest. Let's take the ego and put it aside. Let's put the arrogance and put it aside. Let's just talk as human beings for a second. What I have found is basically my viewer base, my subscriber base is not exactly the most transferable thing I've ever had in my life, right? So we have Silicon Discourse right now, silicondiscourse.com. I think it's going along pretty well. I am happy for it. But to be clear, what do I have? 810,000 subscribers on the main channel, 117,000 subscribers on this channel, and 150 paying members on Silicon Discourse. What I've found is that people just don't transition over to platforms. There is value being a content creator, and you do create a special kind of relationship with certain of your viewers. But for the vast majority of your viewers, they do not transfer onto other platforms. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just, if you look at VidMe, I've got like 88 people on VidMe. Twitch, when I was trying that whole live streaming thing on Twitch, I had like 170. Like after 2 months or something, I had 175 people following me on Twitch. And what I've found is my success is both with my content and, as horrible and painful, sucky as it is to say, and YouTube. I mean, to be really honest with you, this is one of the things I've really had to think about. And one of the reasons why I'm kind of resurrecting my channel and doing more, I'm going back to the whole educational thing on my main channel, is because what I've really had to come to terms with is that if YouTube crap canned me tomorrow, if YouTube just terminated my channel like they can, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going back to square one as far as a content creator, but man, I'm going back to like square three. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I can take some stuff from it, but it's actually not a huge amount. That whole idea of, oh, your viewer base, your fan base will follow you. That's a bunch of horse crap, as far as I think. As far as my viewer base is concerned. So for me, trying to get over to other platforms, I'm not really worried about it at this point. I'm focusing on YouTube and Silicon Discourse. My idea with Silicon Discourse, if I can build Silicon Discourse up to 1,000 members, then I'll pretty be set. I'll be pretty solid. That's something I can actually work with as a business. But otherwise, going over to FloatPlane or anything else. The other thing that you do have to think about as a business person, right, is are you leaving one stupid situation to get into another stupid situation? Because for Linus, right? So for me creating Silicon Discourse, so I own silicondiscourse.com. It is mine. The site is mine, the domain is mine, all of that is mine, right? So basically, more or less, nobody can kick me off of it. But one of the things you have to be thinking about, and so with FloatPlane too, is Linus creates FloatPlane, and then it's his. And again, nobody can kick him off of his thing. One of the things you have to think about is if I take my content and I go from doing YouTube to being FloatPlane, right now, instead of Susan Waja dictating my life on YouTube, I now have Linus dictating my life on FloatPlane. And nothing against Linus, But do I, and this is something to really think about, as a business, not as a human being and not as a geek, but as a business person, do I actually trust Linus more than I trust Susan Wajawajawak? And the reality is, at the end of the day, I probably don't. I mean, if you look at the kind of content that he creates very family friendly, very advertiser friendly content, which just isn't me, which just isn't me. So if I put my content over there and I was telling people to go fuck themselves and I was talking about Jay's 2 cents making a making a freaking video, like literally he was time lapsing a video showing him building a Ryzen computer that got 700,000 views, right? If I started saying my real opinions about this kind of content, I'm not sure Linus would like me for very long either. And that is something that you have to be very careful about. There's this, remember, treat people based on their position to you, look at them based on their position to you. So the way I interact with somebody as a friend is different than how I interact with them as a peer, is different than how I interacted with them as a subordinate, is different than how I interact with them if I'm above them. So again, Linus might be great in a whole bunch of different ways. Do I want to hop on another platform where somebody with like Linus is then again in control of my destiny and all of that? And no, no. So those are my thoughts. Oh, we'll see how FloatPlane goes. We'll see how Float. I'm not. Again, I think it's one of those things like he needs to be able to, like with all of us, we need to disconnect ourselves from the YouTube world. I'll be curious how FloatPlane does at the end of the day. Last time I checked, it's $3 a month for you to join, and I don't know, maybe he really does have that. Maybe that many people really do fucking care about water cooling their graphics cards. I don't get it. Because remember, you have to do the math on that. So it's $3. So every person is $3. So every 100 people is $300. Every 1,000 people that join is $3,000, right? So like 10,000 people equals 30, let's say $30,000 a month. But again, as a business thing, $30,000 a month only comes out to $360,000 a year. They're like, oh, well, but remember, if he's building his own infrastructure, so that means he's got to hire and pay people to build and maintain that infrastructure. He has to pay to keep that infrastructure running. If he's streaming out those videos, he's got to pay for those gig connections up to wherever his data center or whatever else is. So even at 10,000 people paying $3 a month, and then you start getting to 10,000 people and like moderation and administration and customer service and customer support, all of that kind of stuff becomes real issues. And so I am curious from a business standpoint how well that will work out for them. That's why I like with Silicon Discourse. Essentially, let's be honest with you, Silicon Discourse is a WordPress site with a couple of fancy plugins to it, and then I use another vendor for the video distribution. So right now I use YouTube, but I could use VidMe. I could use Vimeo. Vimeo is only $50 a month for 5 terabytes of storage, right? And I would prefer, because that's where when I look at least how it appears, what Linus is trying to do is he's trying to bring all of that infrastructure in house. And then when you do that, I mean, geeks cost money. Geeks cost money. So you start wondering where the profit margin is, where the value and all that kind of proposition is. So I wish him the best. I wish him the best. He'll probably take off, and he'll probably be a gazillionaire long before I am. But I'm not sure I buy it. I think it's you see a lot of competitors out there, like with VidMe now, right? VidMe is supposed to be the YouTube competitor. It's just funny. It's just funny. You look at the stats on VidMe, and it's hilarious. Like trending, you'll see their trending videos on VidMe, and the trending will have 1,000 views. So I think the idea of creating it's kind of like with Groupon. Everybody want to create the next Groupon, and that's the other thing too with like creating the next YouTube. I would actually think creating the next YouTube is a lot like creating the next Groupon, where everybody was trying to create the next Groupon. So Groupon came out, and Living Social came out, and everybody's going to create the next Groupon. But what nobody really paid attention to was that Groupon itself wasn't working, right? The stock price of Groupon went from wherever the hell it is down to like $2 a share because you thought the Groupon model was working, but it really wasn't working. That's the same thing I wonder about with YouTube. Is people look at YouTube and they say, Eli, why don't you create the next YouTube? And the problem is if you actually look at YouTube's numbers, it looks like it's bleeding money. I don't know. The last stats that I saw were the type of thing where it brought in $4 billion and cost $6 billion. That it was losing literally billions of dollars per year. Now with the ad boycott cut revenue by like $1 billion for the year. So that's the other thing is people have this idea like, oh, they're doing so well, I'm gonna copy that. And the question, are they doing that well? Are they? I get nervous with, we talk about Vessel. You talk about Vessel. I get nervous about that with YouTube. Alphabet or Google is so fucking squirrel. I really do wonder if one day that they're just going to spin YouTube off. I mean, they bought Boston Dynamics and spun it off. They bought Motorola and spun it off. They buy crap and then throw it away. I don't know. I have a bit of a question if YouTube will be under Alphabet too many years in the future. So those are my thoughts. I want to stick with Silicon Disc. Okay, I'll stick with Silicon Disc. I don't know. Hey. If Linus wants to come to me and say, Eli, how how many Franklins is it gonna take? Then I'll have a nice little discussion there. Otherwise, I wish them all the best, but yeah, you get my point. So anyways, if you have a question, comment, you want me to take a look at a website or whatever, think about joining silicondiscourse.com for only $5 a month. And otherwise, I will see you folks at the next video.